Okay, so now I've hit the record button and we're actually doing session 12 on MoreSteam. So this is the control session. I'm here with Brittany and Judy, and I'm going to go to share screen. We're going to kind of plow through this stuff relatively quickly tonight. And I'll feel free to stop me or answer questions, but let me sort of go here. There we go. Yeah, let's do this. Slideshow from the start. Okay, and by the way, just the meeting 8 probably doesn't match the meeting sequence. I've kind of lost track about how many online meetings we've had at this point. And I should have taken out the improved section. This is a little artifact. The way we used to do the black belt class in previous summers is we try to pack it all into one quarter. So now that we've spread it out over 2 quarters, it's a little kinder and gentler, but I still have to fix some things in my slides. So that's what's going on there. So here we are. We are down here talking about control. So we're meeting on November 9th. We're talking about the control. So let's sort of talk about what needs to happen. So we've got the practice test, which you complete at any point after you finish all the MoreSteam sessions, and you're feel free to go ahead with that. I'll talk about that a little bit tonight, what that looks like. And then your mini project is also due on the 27th. So what is that, the end of Thanksgiving week? So we want you to have that mini project done so that we can do the report out. So we've actually only got one more online meeting, which is going to be the 30th of November. So on that Wednesday, that 30th of November, we're going to have you guys talk about your projects, okay? And so we want you to have your mini project due before then. Any immediate questions about the timing on this stuff at this point? Okay. So we get the due dates there, and it should be good. I'm going to skip over sharing your mini project insights and results. Well, actually, maybe I won't skip it over. So this might be a good point. So I know, Brittany, that you haven't been to a couple of the previous class meetings. We haven't sort of heard about sort of your concerns or where you are on your project. Could you give us maybe sort of a quick thumbnail of where you're at? And then, Judy, if you want to sort of do the same. And Judy, we're scheduled to talk on Friday, right? In a little more detail. That's Judy. Your microphone is muted, so I can't.
Yeah, I always forget that. I have mouth finger coordination.
Okay. Yeah. So maybe both of you can just give me a little update on where you're at on your projects, and then we can go ahead and move on. So Brittany, you want to start out?
Sure. So I was telling Eric earlier that can I call you Eric? I'm sorry.
Oh yeah, please. That's fine.
That my product is more of a service, so I find it a little more difficult to apply some of the tools. And so I have most of my measure and analyze side of things under control, even though I'm not sure if I'm measuring too many little increments of time, because a lot of the waste is going to be due to time delays between, or number of people that. Okay, my father has a market research company, and so the product is a market research report. So sometimes they have to talk to many different employees before they get to the right person, and then waiting and all that kind of stuff, and for time in those senses. But I'm not totally sure on the improved side of things. It's kind of where I have to do a little more like critical thinking. Okay. I'm just a little more behind, so that's where I'm a little concerned because.
Okay. All right. Actually, I have a really sort of cool improvement that I've sort of done for my own stuff that I want to share with you guys a little bit later. So,
okay,
so I'm excited on that. Judy, how about you? Where are you at on your project? Or where are you thinking?
Well, I've been kind of spinning my wheels because obviously in order to measure, there has to be some data being generated. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, my company, which was supposed to roll out this time tracking tool, which I'm highly skeptical about, I must say. I think it's horribly designed and not at all customized for our needs. But in any case, they messed around on the licensing,
Right.
so that nobody had licenses basically except me. Until, well, it actually hasn't been rolled out because the day before I took off for medical leave, they said, oh, guess what? The licenses are all done. We're going to need you to roll this out. And I suggested perhaps that since the transition effort was over, I was thinking, I will devise a new project, right? Since the transition effort was over, and the only reason why I was heading it up anyway was because I wanted to end up with a good tool, that perhaps someone else could take over that rollout effort. Right. And that actually has not proven to be the case. Okay. We're currently in discussion about when it will be rolled out, as long as it's as soon as possible, and as long as I do it even though I'm not in the office. So I guess my questions about this are, should I, basically go fishing, figure out a different project? Is it statistically at all realistic? I have metrics for only myself. Right. So I've been doing dual time tracking. With a manual method. And I mean, the whole goal here is to see which is more accurate, and weigh that against automation, right?
Hey, Judy, how about, and this might take us a little bit further, and I think everybody could potentially benefit from this. I'm going to do a screen share here. And let's go ahead and share screen. And let's open up Excel here, and let's go ahead and bump it up to 200%. So let's just kind of, what I want to do is I want to take a little of the scariness of this mini project away, and so if I've got define, let's kind of do this here. I want this to be big enough so everybody can sort of see what's going on here. Let's just sum to 18 point, maybe 20 point. All right, so I've got define, measure, analyze, improve, control. Okay. So let's just go ahead and do that. All right, so define, I need like 2 tools to do that, right? So I'm going to say the charter, you have to have that, right? So we've got the charter for a tool, right? And then, to do a detailed flow chart, sometimes that can be a little bit, hard. But when you're doing like a SIPOC, so like if I did a supplier, input, process, output, customer. So I'm just going to do a SIPOC flow chart, which would be, and so what is the process you're working on, Judy?
It's attempting to improve time tracking.
Okay, so this is the improved time tracking process.
Yes.
Or implementation. So you can do like a high level flow chart, and the nice thing about a SIPOC, it doesn't get down to the details of little process steps, but sort of overall, big sort of chunks on the process that you're going to put down there. And you're looking at, okay, what are the inputs to those big chunks? What are the outputs? Who are the suppliers? Who are the customers for each one of those? And now you're done with define, right? If you can get there. For measure, sounds like you've got some things where you're starting to measure the time.
Yeah, I've got two tools that we're using, or that we're going to use. I had a license, so I turned mine on weeks and months ago.
Okay.
And at the same time, I was also manually tracking time because it appeared to me that the tool that we had was completely broken or else incredibly inept.
So let's just sort of say it's nice you have sort of two sets of data, but what if you just did a run chart, right? And so a run chart would be, I've been tracking this stuff over time. So you have a horizontal axis is time or date, and the vertical axis is the amount of time it took you to do something, right? And you're just going to go ahead and plot that run chart and see what the data looks like. You know, maybe it's interesting, maybe it's not interesting. If it's a flat, even Judy, if it's even like a flat horizontal line, you're going to say the reason I did this tool was to see what the data looks like over time, and then my interpretation. The data is a flat line. It's really boring. It didn't really tell me anything, right?
Okay.
And then that tool is done, right? The other thing I like to see in measure is I like to see it like an operational definition. So when you're actually sort of taking these time increments, and maybe it's not only your the machine time that you're getting, but there's also, you have the manual time.
Yes.
Describe for me how you're doing each one of those measures, so that if I walked up and I wanted to say, I want to do the same kind of measure, I would know how to do that.
Okay.
And that would be like operational definition. So you got some sort of clarity on that. I like if you're doing, manual versus the machine time tracking, that sounds like a paired t-test to me. So you're doing like a paired t-test. So for each thing, your hypothesis is that the difference between the machine time and the manual time, the null hypothesis is no difference. So that the paired t-test, when it does that subtraction, is looking for the average to be 0, right?
Okay.
And so you do a paired t-test on that, and you say you either reject the null hypothesis, or you say the alternative is more likely, and you sort of move on, right?
Okay.
Now, if maybe one of the things you could do is you could do a fishbone diagram, right? Now, a fishbone diagram wants to know like a problem, and you're looking for the contributors to the problem. So if your problem was mismatch between machine and actual and manual, I guess, right?
I'm sorry?
It was mismatch between machine and manual.
Uh-huh.
Like, you can then have a fishbone diagram that says, well, there could be sort of human error because you could have recorded things wrong if you're doing it manually. It could be that the machine time was doing something. So there's a machine element. So there's the person, there's a machine, there's the method you're using to track it manually. Maybe there's some methodological things that are going wrong. But essentially, you're just trying to, kind of give me like all the things that could cause mismatch between, the machine and manual.
Sure. Yeah, there's definitely a lot of that machine.
Right, right. And now we have to go to some sort of improvement, right? And I don't know, if you've got some ideas, based on your experience, where you could sort of make some recommendations on changes. So I don't know, do you have like some recommended software changes?
I definitely do. In fact, I have formally requested those changes multiple times prior to rollout.
Yeah, so really improvements are just about changes, right? Now we've got some like standard off-the-shelf changes you can use in Lean, like Kanban systems or doing line balancing and things. But the fundamental here is, what are you going to do differently from where you were up here, right, in the current state versus what you're going to do in the future state. So recommended changes work. Just tell me, the reason I said I saw problems, why I saw problems in the existing software. Here are my recommended changes. My interpretation is that these changes will improve X, Y, Z, or make things better or whatever, right?
So is it legitimate? Because both of these methods that I've been using and that we're going to be using so that everybody can see what I already know,
right,
are inadequate. Really, I'm comparing three things. I'm comparing the time tracked manually, the time tracked automatically, and the actual time spent put in.
Okay.
If you make the assumption that somebody that's working a 40-hour week is in fact active in doing things for more than 10 hours a week,
right,
which is what the software tends to capture,
right,
then there's clearly some process problems.
yeah,
And it's more than, whatever the figure is, I don't know it off the top of my head, more than 20 hours a week, which is what manual is capturing.
right,
And there's the human errors.
right.
And so there would be, the main recommendation is either going to be improvements to the software, which may or may not be possible, or to identify a third method, test and identify a third method that's more accurate.
Yeah. Now, okay. So I don't understand enough to make a recommendation on you going that direction.
Uh-huh.
But one of the things I heard that might work for you in this improvement, what if you implemented a simple sort of check sheet, some sort of check sheet process to capture changes or capture errors or problems? And by the way, I've noticed my keyboard has like an E problem, so I got to sort of figure out how to fix that.
So the improvement would be to implement the check sheet, or the improvement would be
no, I think
the check sheet.
The improvement is to implement the check sheet. So as part of your process, you're going to say, I do these things. I enter data. I'm not exactly sure what it is that you do,
sure,
what the process looks like. But you're going to insert a step that says, okay, a decision block. Did any problems occur? If a problem occurred, you go to the check sheet. You put a tick mark on the check sheet against that type of problem, and then you capture it, right? So it could be a visual sort of check sheet that you sort of put into the process. Okay, so now we've got all the way through define, measure, analyze, improve, control. We need some controls. A good thing for control is always tried and true is standard work.
Eric, what is the SW?
Software.
Okay.
Yeah. So SW stands for software.
Could that be just like a written paragraph? Like, for example, if I wanted to write my dad a report of what I think a tracking system should include, or?
Yeah. Like I said, any kind of recommended changes. So it might be in Judy's case, it was a recommended software change. Your dad's case, it might be a recommended change to the reporting process or the order of operations or whatever. But what I'm saying is, it doesn't have to be a classic lean, change or improvement like Kanbans and that stuff. It could be just any kind of, logical, scientific improvement or change could be one of those things that you do. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And then, just sort of continue on. So for control, standard work is always good. I would say, maybe if you've got a run chart up here in measure, I can turn a run chart into a control chart. So that, now that I know, maybe I've sort of standardized a little bit on how I'm doing my process. I've got some standard work on there. The process, I've got enough understanding. I think that it's in control. Put a control chart in place to make sure that it stays in control. That if something happens or something changes, can happen. So this could be like an IMR chart, right? So individual moving range chart would be a good kind of control chart, or actually two control charts, because you're controlling the individual value and you're also controlling the range, right? So Judy, what I just did was, trying to demystify the mini project and just sort of break it down into pieces and say, you got the information and you can do those 10 pieces and knock this thing out and not, angst over it and think it's, some sort of big thing that you have to do. This is pretty straightforward. You don't have to solve your total problem, fix your business, save the world. Just do these 10 tools. Tell me why you did the tools and what your interpretation is, and you're done with the mini project. Okay,
that actually helps a whole lot. I may not even actually need to come down on Friday, because I think what I was trying to do was make sure that I had enough data from a good sample and, do it like a scientific experiment.
Yeah.
And those pieces were just missing.
Right. And that's the non-mini project. That's like if you're doing this as a real project, we would focus on getting the answers and it would be driven by the questions and the problem. This is a little bit driven by the questions and the problem, but it's a lot driven by just knock out 10 tools to show me that
I know how to use them.
You know how to use 10 tools and you can interpret them, okay?
Okay, that makes sense. I was actually, I thought seriously about doing something like that, but then I wondered if it was ethical to just sort of not exactly make up data, but not really have representative data.
Yeah. Well, I want you to be ethical, and the way you would be ethical is if the data is shaky, and there's issues in the interpretation. Tell me, that although the data says the process is in control, I am suspicious because of the way I took the data X, Y, Z, right?
Okay.
So be honest in what you're interpreting and reporting, but handle it that way. Okay.
Okay.
All right. Hey, Dominic, welcome to the conversation. We've got the four of us online, sort of walking through this now. Is everything okay with you?
Yes.
Okay.
So don't say that with such hesitancy.
Well, we actually walked through Dominic's project last time and did some recording and stuff. So hopefully you're still okay. Dominic, what we're doing is I'm just sort of moving through the slides and discussion here. We're recording, and then feel free to stop me as we sort of go along. But control is our last section here.
Yep.
All right. So I'm going to do let's see. So I'm still on share, but let me go ahead and close this down.
Thank you, Eric. I think that actually gets me on track. I think I'll work on that on Friday afternoon instead of making the trip down to SLO.
Okay. All right. That's fine. We freed up both our afternoons there. So I'm going to go ahead and kind of cross you off the list there. All right, we're good.
Nothing I like better than canceling meetings, truthfully.
Well, it's like a gift, right? So,
right?
Okay. So just, I think we talked about this last time. As soon as you're finished with this session, you could do the practice exam. It's just 10 questions. Budget your time accordingly. Just so you know, as a practice, you want this to be as much of a simulation of the real thing as you can get with 10 questions. The real exam is 120 questions and 5 hours long. So in the final exam, you're going to have to do like 2.5 minutes per question. So you ought to be sort of shooting to complete the practice exam in about 25 minutes. If it's taking longer than 25 minutes, you want to sort of rethink your test strategy a little bit, okay? So the final exam needs to be completed by December 11th, right? Sunday at 11 p.m. You guys, I think the way we set it up, and you'd have to maybe go back and listen last time, I'm going to go ahead and free you guys to go ahead and do that. The only thing you need to have completed before you do the final exam is you have to complete the practice exam first, and you have to complete it, then the final exam before that December 11th, 11 p.m. window, okay? Okay, questions about practice exam and final exam. I've got the information. These slides will be posted on the Fullerton website, so you can kind of read these things in your leisure. These are the same instructions that you would get if you went to the actual test. You guys have access to the actual test. It's currently available on MoreSteam. You can click the button. You can click the first button. It won't put you immediately into the test, but it'll allow you to read these same sort of instructions there, okay? Open book, open notes, open windows, open anything. Make sure when you do the practice test, you're using the computer you're going to use to take the final test, so you have all your resources available, etc. Any questions on that?
Sounds terrifying, but no.
Well, just kind of not to get in the weeds here, but I'm anticipating questions on hypothesis testing and DOEs. Right. I don't know why, but
they'll be there.
Yeah. And time management and budgeting for that. One, if it's not an exact figure, can you ballpark a figure of how many of those will be on the test? And then two, do we need to keep any data for follow-on questions to something that may be further along the test? I know we saw that in some of the simulations and exercises.
So there are questions where like on the quizzes where they'll tell you download this data set to do this statistical analysis and then answer these questions, right? So that will exist. The questions are set up so that all the questions related to that data set are in the same place.
Okay.
Or are sequential, right?
Okay.
So it won't be that you'll download data on question 5 and you'll have to use it again on question 105. Got it. Right? Okay. As far as percentage goes, you will see, a couple or a few of those data-related questions, but it won't be a constant stream of that sort of question. Does that sort of make sense?
Yes.
Right. Okay. Right. Other questions on that? And by the way, when you do the practice test, I think one of the deficiencies in the practice test is they don't really give you questions like that. Okay. They'll give you more of the sort of conceptual sort of questions. There might be something where you have to do a quick sort of calculation or something, but those sort of big data crunching questions, you probably won't. The ones that are more like that are the kinds of things you're seeing in the current exams and the quizzes and stuff that you're taking. All right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so how are you guys calculating that stuff? Are you guys using Engine Room? Because thus far I've been using Engine Room just because it has those tutorials and it has all of the material, even though I'm sure Excel could do some of those things, or I could have downloaded something else. But I'm a little nervous because sometimes my Engine Room is extremely glitchy and very slow.
Okay.
So.
So here's one way to think about it. I would, and this maybe is a test strategy, but you can sort of, use what you're comfortable with. If you're faster at using Minitab or something, maybe you want to go there. Because MoreSteam is the author of Engine Room, and they're also the author of the final exam, you pretty much have to be able to answer the question using Engine Room, right? That kind of makes it. It wouldn't be fair to say you can't get to the answer, more directly or easily using Engine Room than another product if it's, the same company that's giving you the test and giving you the tool to answer the tests, right? So hypothetically, Engine Room should be easier to answer the questions, right? Because the form factor, the way it presents the data, the way it presents the answer will be more compatible with the questions than maybe some other statistical software package, right? The fact is that, you should have some sort of backup plan to Engine Room. And I'm going to share something with you here that I think is a good backup. And okay, so this is the weighting of the grades of the course and stuff. You can go ahead and look at that. Just remember that this final exam is like 50% of your grade. So a lot of the points are in that bucket. The mini project is only 15% of your grade. But one of the places to get a backup is in this sort of template. So on the Engine Rooms or the MoreSteam training sidebar, there's this templates. If you click on the templates, it gives you a list of all the Excel templates that MoreSteam provides. And I think I even provide, if you go on to the Fullerton Moodle in resources, I think I've also downloaded and copied all these Excel templates. You could download all these onto a memory stick and take this with you for the rest of your life. Now, all these things are here. One thing that I think all these templates work pretty well on Excel for a PC. These Excel templates, especially when there are macros associated with it, so it says contains macros. The macros are a little bit glitchy, or sometimes I have problems with them when I'm running my Apple, right? So if you're taking this test on an Apple and you're using these Excel templates, you might want to sort of think about that or check them first, or if they all of a sudden don't see to open or run, don't spend a lot of time on them. It could be an Apple problem, all right, or an Apple compatibility problem, all right? Questions on this or anything about software test-taking strategies?
Was that you kind of answering my question? I know my internet cut out right after I asked.
Well, right after you asked, okay. So just to repeat.
Sorry.
No, that's okay. First choice is use Engine Room, because Engine Room will give you the answers in the form factor that most likely matches the question. As a backup, if you're not familiar with Minitab, but you are familiar with Excel, then you'll go to this templates page here and look for an Excel template that maybe can help you answer the question, all right?
Okay.
Now, I think, same sort of thing applies. So if MoreSteam's given you a template, probably that's going to give you the information you need to answer the question. And it's, sized appropriately and, and whatnot, okay? All right. So let's go ahead and move on. So this is the control phase. I just, screen grabbed a few things so I can sort of talk through it. Achieving control requires planning for control. One of the things that I like to see is like a failure modes and effects analysis. So where can things go wrong in a process in order to use that to justify the creation of a control plan? Where you're going to put your control charts, where you're going to put inspections, what kind of things you need to watch out for. So I think that's a really good sort of 1-2 pitch from a control standpoint. We talked about like standard work being a real sort of workhorse for control. If you've put in all this work to figure out a better process, please document that process and use a sort of a standard work format to go ahead and do that documentation. Certainly, making things visual and visual controls are really a good thing to do. So I'd sort of recommend that. I'm going to share with you a little sort of visual thing that I'm currently playing with and using that I could sort of recommend. And this follows up to Brittany, something that you might want to use in your improve stage and helping out your dad.
Yeah.
Total preventive maintenance or total productive maintenance is something that you want to be sort of considering if you've got machine-intensive environments that you're working with. Dominic, I don't know, does Zodiac have a total productive maintenance program? Are you guys into that at all?
We like to pretend we are.
Okay, all right. Yeah, I think it's something that more companies need to get into. I know when I was at Hewlett-Packard, and this was sort of like in the 90s, we were talking about, well, should we do, Six Sigma or should we do total productive maintenance? And they were sort of, presented as sort of conflicting approaches. But really we're starting to think of them now as they're very compatible approaches. And, lean, total productive maintenance, Six Sigma, although they can stand alone as paradigms for organizing processes and improving things, I think they also work really well together, or they should work well together. And last but not least, make sure you're capturing lessons learned. So it could be that one of the tools that everybody uses in their control phase is some sort of method for capturing lessons learned. And I think MoreSteam proposes a few different ways you can go ahead and do that. And lessons learned on your mini project, just sort of go ahead and use that tool to capture those things, and you've knocked out another tool in the control phase. So that might even be, Judy, an even easier alternative than doing a control chart, if that doesn't seem to really be useful and make a lot of sense for you. Okay? All right. So any questions on any of those, or the things that you guys have Control is really all about, making this thing sticky, right? Making it stick so the things that you've improved or done stay in place. That's the bottom line for control. Let's see. Somebody got their microphone. Brittany, your microphone, I think, is giving us a little feedback. Can you go on mute?
Yeah, sorry.
No, that's okay.
Wait, I don't know how to do that. Oh, yeah.
There you go. Okay, so what I want to do is I want to share with you something that I've been having a lot of fun with recently in my own world, and I think it works real well in control. It could also work real well maybe as an improvement, as something you put in place for your process. So I'm going to switch my cameras here. I got a 2-camera setup, and I'm going over to to my whiteboard here, and I'm looking where it is. So what this is, I've been looking at some stuff called personal Conman, and using that to sort of try to manage my own personal work. But I'm also going to share with you some things where this can also be applied to teams from a team daily or weekly Huddle standpoint is where we use it. But essentially on this tool, we have 3 sort of big sort of areas that work in this. There's a ready section, a doing section, and doing or pending section, and a done section. So the idea here is I've got a lot of, and maybe you guys have this, you got your own sort of to-do list or a bunch of things that, you've got to get done, over the next week or month or 2 or whatever. I turn those into a bunch of Post-it notes, with the date that I've actually posted on here and a little description of what they are. Then every morning what I do is I plan my today, what I'm going to be doing. And I treat this like a Conman. And through experience and trial and error, I figure out that I really can't do more than 2 or 3 Post-it notes in a day. So I'll put 2 or 3 Post-it notes in this day, and these are the things that I'm going to try to get done, all right? Now, sometimes these Post-it notes involve things that have sort of an interactive component with other people. So that's what this pending area is. So I might, do this day. So at one point I had create Kanban for area chairs. So I was creating the same sort of system for area chairs. I created it, but before I'm going to give myself credit for completing it, I wanted to get buy-in from the area chair. So I haven't gotten the buy-in yet. So it went from doing to something pending to complete. The other time that pending comes into play is you send off my thing to do is I got to tell somebody to do something in this email. So I'm going to compose my email, send it off. They're supposed to do it, but I also want to make sure I follow up and make sure they actually did it, right? So that's where I've got this sort of pending, so I make sure I have a follow-up. And then the idea is I'm trying to get things over here into the done section on my basis. So every day, if I got 2 done every day, I would have 15 things done over here by the end of the week. Now, another thing that's I think is key to control is actually measurement and tracking. So one of the ways that I track this is every week on Monday morning, I go over and I look at how many things did I get done last week. And I write that in the denominator. So I've now been doing this for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks. So I've been running this as an experiment for 6 weeks. And I write down, so first week I got 16 done, and then 6, and then 16, then 14, then 11. Last week was 5, right? And then the number I'm tracking in the numerator, and I don't know how useful or interesting this is, but I wanted to see how many things were going from ready to done within the week. And so I would look up here and say, okay, how many of these things have a date that was within the last week? And so these are things that I'm getting done relatively fast. And so, for instance, in the first week, I got 16 done, but 17 or only 7 were done within the same week, right? So that means 9 were older than a week that I got done. 6 and 6, that was sort of pretty much in and out. 8 and 16, about half. So I've got some more information, and one of the things that you're doing when you're setting up a system like that, I'm starting to build understanding about how I work and the number of things that I can get done in a particular week, okay? So this is a personal Kanban board. It was I'm in discussions with the guy that wrote the book, Personal Kanban, about coming out and doing a workshop for us at the summit, showing people how to do this. I'll show you another couple of examples. I'm going to flip my camera around here first for a second. I'm going to take this one away. And I don't think I have enough distance on my my wire to do this, but this is a whiteboard, and this is one I work with my my lean team of students. And the difference between this board and the other board is we have another sort of box category, which is our idea category. And I'm assuming you guys can sort of see this, but we've got a box here that are for ideas. And the idea box is anybody during the week can put an idea up there that needs to be talked about. And then in our weekly huddle, where we meet and we're still sort of meeting for about an hour to talk about things, but we're trying to compress that down and get it faster. But when we talk about it, we would move things from an idea up into the ready category, right? So if we all agree, we understand what that is, that's ready to be pulled into our doing area. Then what we do is we say, okay, during our weekly meeting, what are we going to actually commit to do this week? So we'll move things from the ready into the doing area. We have our pending area up in here, same sort of thing. And then we keep the stuff up from last week. So these were all the post-it notes we did last week. We had 7 that were completed. And then we start to count the new ones here. So we keep on flipping back and forth between this week and next week. We can always see what last week's was. And so this is our sort of our management technique. So I think this could be implemented either as a control technique, right, to make sure that ideas are getting implemented, that work is being processed, that things are getting done with your team or with a work group, or it could be done as part of an improvement. This is now part of our standard work or our standard process, the way the team works and the way to get it done. I think it's a real nice variation and upgrade. A lot of teams are doing daily huddles or weekly huddles with a whiteboard. I think this makes it more visual. People get a good sort of tactile feel for moving things around. We celebrate when we get a lot of stuff done in a particular week. We're tracking it, and we're feeling good about what we're doing. Oh, the other thing is we're also tracking on this board, we track how many we have left over in the week. So we'll typically try to say, hey, we got 7 last week. Let's make sure we have at least 7 over here to do. And then at the end of the week, we're tracking how many we have left over. So we had 1, 2, 4, and 2. Last week we did this for 4 weeks. We got 6, 7, 4, and 7. We're starting to build that understanding of what our capability is as an organization.
So I have a question about that.
Yeah, go ahead.
So when you're tracking how many tasks you can do in a week,
right?
I don't know what your tasks are, obviously, but in my line of work, which is troubleshooting, a task can take 5 minutes, or it can take 4.5 days, you know? And so I'm not sure how meaningful it would be to me to know from week to week how many tasks I did, except that I suppose I could get some metrics about, on average, we have, 15 multi-day tasks and, 200 5-minute tasks.
Right.
Because over time, there certainly would probably be an average like that.
Right. And I guess, I think you're exactly right, Judy. I think the thing that I'm sort of recognizing about this is the work that we do, right? So this is my work on this board behind me. This is the work of my team over here on the whiteboard. And we're starting to understand, boy, we got a lot of 5-minute tasks. And then some of these things are really big tasks. They're not moving. In order to show movement, we got to break these things down into smaller chunks, right?
Okay, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, so maybe what we want, I think what we want to sort of get to is that understanding. And let's try to get it so that these tasks are sort of sized for the amount of work that maybe a single person can do in a week, right? And so we build that understanding and that learning. And if you think about how bad engineers are and people are estimating how long it takes to do things.
Yes, I have some experience with that.
I know, that's everybody's world, right? And now our team is starting to understand when they write something on a Post-it note and they're wrong, right? This didn't take me 1 week, this took me 3 weeks. That learning is fed back into the system. So they're not going to do that as often or as frequently. So we're going to become better at meeting our commitments because we have an increased understanding of, how we do work and what the work is. Okay?
I've gotten some feedback on that somewhat because my husband works for Troy Weipert.
Ah, okay.
And I think they've been doing some of that.
Yeah. No, so they have the daily, weekly huddle, and they do probably have a whiteboard. I don't know if their whiteboard is sort of using the same sort of mechanisms as mine is.
I don't know. He's been talking about his done area.
Okay. All right. Well, yeah, maybe because I've talked to Troy a little bit. Maybe they've sort of adopted that sort of thing. But done is a great concept. I'll tell you.
Big fan of done.
There's so many one of my experiences, working with my engineering team at Hewlett Packard is I would go into our, weekly team meeting. Everybody'd sit around the table, and boy, every week it was the same story. And everybody's working on weren't you working on that last week? Yeah, I'm working on it this week. Well, let's you got to show movement, right? Or you got to show some level of completion. And we got to the point. So one of the things I think that one of the sort of the concerns are we had the big tasks and little tasks. And then the other thing that usually comes up when people look at this sort of thing is, well, what about sandbagging, right? What if I write Post-it notes that are so easy and little that I keep, oh man, look at all those Post-its. There's a pile of them, right? There is a sort of a peer pressure mechanism that if people start, noticing that somebody's cherry picking stuff, or, they're starting to write, these sort of little tiny, Post-its that are too small, there'll be a general, a peer pressure to sort of elevate the game, right? Hey, that's too easy. Can you try a little, pick a little harder time. Let's really knock this out of the park. So you want to build that sort of thing also, right? But allow them to sandbag for, a few weeks, get some high numbers, get people feeling good, and then say, okay, hey, look, we've been having a good time. This is, we've demonstrated we can knock these things out. Now let's get serious about how we, structure these things so that real work's getting accomplished, if you will. Right?
Got it.
Okay. But I've been really pleased with how this goes. Oh, so the other thing I was going to show you guys is I've got my portable version here, right?
Nice.
This little science project board, right? And I take this with me to so this is the instructional department heads and chairs, Conman. So I use this to, help facilitate our department heads and chairs meetings. And I bring this with me, I just fold it up, put it on my arm. I just, take this to my meeting because I can't carry these big whiteboards around, right? So, I don't know, it's cool. I'm learning a lot, and I'm feeling pretty good about the way this works, and hopefully this can help you guys too a little bit, all right?
Cool.
Thank you, Eric. That
Yep.
was really helpful. I thought that was really interesting. I think it'd be really applicable in my organization and personally, and I totally understand that peer pressure aspect of it and it's a really positive thing, and it's easy on my part because I don't have to do much. They all just kind of want to feel like they're contributing an equal amount, and especially when you have an overachiever in the group, then it's great.
Oh yeah, I got one of my team members. She loves moving those Post-it notes over. She comes in during office hours and she's like, okay, which ones can I move? I've got other situations, other groups, not so much. It's a lot slower, but I think we're on the right track here, right? So, okay. Well, let me, I think we're pretty much, let me go back to, I took you off share screen, I think. Let me go back to share screen. Just want to make sure I give you guys your money's worth. And from current slide. And we're not going to work a problem tonight. I guess we could talk about the Kanban, personal Kanban board is a problem. Hidden gems, MoreSteam has some Calvin Coolidge quote. I like this quote, a lot better, from Theodore Roosevelt. So I'm going to use this as a teaser. You can go back and read it when you have some free time. You can also Google Theodore Roosevelt, Man in the Ring, and you can kind of read this quote. But I think it's pretty inspirational, and it also, I think, describes sort of the battle of being a Lean Six Sigma black belt or a Lean Six Sigma green belt and trying to make things happen. Okay. So with that is it for today. I kind of went a little maybe longer than usual, but it was good talking to you guys. Any questions or things that you want to close on here?
No, I just want to thank you because I actually feel a whole lot better about stuff now.
Okay. All right. Well, that's I've started doing that sort of walk through the tools list with my green belt class, and we did it this quarter. I'm going to make that a regular feature earlier on. I should have done that with you guys in the summer, but it kind of always works, and I think it walks people off the ledge a little bit on the main project. Okay?
Yeah, I was definitely on the ledge.
Okay. All right, good.
Hey,
all right. Yeah,
just one quick question. When's your next black belt session? Do you guys have that online?
Yeah, so we're going to start another black belt session online is January, and the quarter starts, it's a weekend, right? Because Monday's a holiday, the 2nd, so it's like the 9th, I think, is when it starts, right?
See if I can get Chester and Desiree through this.
Yeah, well, it'd be good to have, those ringers, and that's some more ringers in there, so.
Yeah.
All right.